So, of course, generative AI can make something look so realistic, but a lot of the generative AI out there screws up the fingers and all sorts of stuff. If you look at the pictures close enough, you'll see it. Not all pictures, but a good majority of them have some little flaw. Kind of reminds me of living in Korea. I used to joke and say they could copy anything, but they were the land of the not quite right, because it almost seemed like it was by design. They would leave a little artistic signature flaw, almost like indicating this is a copy specifically. If anybody notices this flaw, they'll know it. And that, I think, is just like anything, like criminals always want to be caught. So they'll, collect tokens, or there's a name for it. Kind of like actually the fucked up thing about it is, it's just like relics, basically tokens, relics, just like in religion, which is so gross. How they supposedly have the blood or the bones or pieces of the so-called saint. I mean, talk about some sick ritualistic bullshit right there. Like, nobody ever considers that. Like the fact that you go to church, you go to the, like I lived in Naples, Italy. So of course, San Gennaro is the patron saint of Naples, and his head got chopped off and rolled down the hill and hit a wall, and they collected some of the blood, and supposedly twice a year they go, everybody goes to check the blood if it's fluid, if it's sanguine, right? If it's moving or not, is indicative of whether or not it's going to be a crisis year, or there's going to be some miracle that year. I mean, people never questioned how sick that sounds. Like, we're collecting freaking blood. And even the idea that when I was growing up, blood of my blood, body of my body, eat and drink of me. Like, hello, you do not see, because you're so indoctrinated in it, you're so deep in it, you're literally performing rituals according to their script. But yet, you never question the legitimacy of it. Ew. Wow, that's a whole video on its own, right? I mean, communion, okay? First off, you're baptized. Let me pour some water over your head that's holy, supposedly. Put you into the currency. Let's go back to the Maritime Admiralty law. You were coming out of the birth canal, and then they set you up to go into the religious doctrines, to be indoctrinated, to be baptized into bapt. I mean, even the baby's screaming and crying like they know something's not right about this. I just came out of water. What are you trying to do, drown me again? And of course, we know that the system is set up. They took the soul print on the birth certificate. Nobody ever considers soul, S-O-L-E, and S-O-U-L. There's your duplicity in that. And since you've been baptized and you're lost at sea because the doc tendered your birth certificate to keep track of you like chattel on the stock market, you have a special number, and it owned by, some people have said the Vatican, but other people are saying it's actually the UN or United Nations. I'm not sure what the heck's going on there, but it's all paperwork. It goes back to this paper playing game that I spoke of in previous videos about how all it is a freaking story they created, and by virtue of our ignorance, it's assumed we're going along with it, and we don't even know we're going along with it because we weren't given informed consent. We weren't given the full information. We were only given pieces, and that's why we're all fragmented, and we're trying to collect our parts and put ourselves back together like Humpty Dumpty that fell off the wall. And so you're baptized into a religion, whether, it doesn't even matter which one it is. They're all basically fronts for something, but they're all in these sick ritualistic traditions of, why are you drinking blood of my blood? Like, what the hell? Nobody ever questioned that. Why are you eating my body of my body? Like wafers and wine. Ew. And I think back to communion. Before, after the baptismal, proceedings and all that ritualism. Now we're going to go and going to put you, little girl, in a little white dress with a little veil, and the boys all dressed up too. And it's like this, it actually makes me think of those young brides in the Muslim traditions and stuff like that. It's like, what the hell? This idea that you're marrying God, or the implication of giving yourself up, marrying yourself to the church, confession, confessing your sins and communion and confirmation, like those words, the word spells. So you're baptized. You go through religious school, so they indoctrinate you and teach you what they want you to know. Communion, communing with God, which you have to have confirmation to be a part of that indoctrination. Like, it's all the stages, all the rituals to lead you up to being, a part of this cult, because they're all cults of personalities, cults of sick doctrines. I don't want to judge anybody for going into these situations, because we all did something unknowingly and completely against us, but we didn't recognize it because we were just going along to get along, because we were taught this is what you do. And then you got older and it was like, wait a minute here. And some of us were questioning it way back then. We were like, wait a minute here, what's going on? I don't get it. Well, you're not supposed to ask questions. Like, I was the kid in religious class asking questions, I'm sorry, but I'm reading the scriptures and it says that God said, don't worship me within four walls. You're confusing me. Why are you telling me I need to go to church? I'm happy I'm happy out there having my conversations with God personally. Before I even went to church or school, I was out in nature having conversations with God that I was connected to. So now you're telling me something that doesn't make sense to me, and I already know it for what it really is, because I was already connected to it. You're trying to disconnect me from myself, disconnect me from what I know, and tell me, and to replace that with what you want me to think and believe and assume is true, which it is not. If it's true, it doesn't need to be taught. There's a truth bomb right there. Truth doesn't need to be taught, because truth is felt. Your body is your best indicator. It is your GPS. It is always tattling on the mind. It is the truth teller. It is the oracle, but they don't want you to know that. That's why they're trying to get you first thing out of the womb. Because if you know that everything you need to know is within you, you are the oracle, then what are they going to do? What are they going to do with themselves? They need to be useful. They call us useful idiots, but in their sense, they think they need to be imposed upon us, and they consider themselves like our caretakers, or they think they're better than us, but they're just as much useful idiots as they assume us to be, because we're all being puppeted. There's a hidden hand that is guiding both them and us. We are both contributing and participating in the same roles. We are all part of the same dialogue script. We're just going along to get along. We're just following the script. We didn't even realize we were following the script. And it's like the conversation with my girlfriend earlier today. I was like, everything being a story, you just don't realize how much was really all just told to us. It's all old sayings that conditioned us with the grooves, right? The habits, the routines, the bullshit stories, the belief system right there. Those are the contributors to our belief systems. All those little, nothing comes without hard work. This assumption that you have to suffer for your greatness, the whole martyrdom theory, Oh, God, Jesus, he died on the cross for our sins. It's like, are you kidding me? It's all bullshit. It's all a story. Get over it. And nobody really wants to hear that. So, yeah. Again, it's the two halves of the whole story. You're only getting half of the story. They've only ever given us half and left the other half lingering in front of us, but we don't necessarily notice it because we're so fragmented within ourselves. Until we become whole, we won't see the whole without us, right? The wholeness within us allows us to see everything as whole outside of us. So then we don't just see things as good and bad. We see them as their counterparts and co-pilots, that you being in your wholeness sees everything from the various angles. Like, basically, you could see it as you become the observer witness, as if you're the producer, director, and star of your own show. And this is the key, because you get back in the driver's seat. You need to be the star of your own show, your own story in this life. So when you become the observer witnesser in your wholeness, like I said, you become the producer, director, and star acting role. And so then you can look around you and see the parts that others are playing, whether they're in their own game or they're in the collective game, the matrix. And then you can also see the neutrality for what it is, the flat across the board. Here's the whole story. Here's the picture. And then you can actually see the details and how imbalanced around it can be. You'll be able to see what may be perceived to one person as good. One person sees that as bad. You'll see all the moving parts because you're all of it yourself. It really is divinely orchestrated. Everything is perfect as it is. It's, people talk about the law of physics, the law of energy, the law of duality and polarity. It's all of it, because where there's a left, there's a right, and where there's an up, there's a down. And unless you're in your neutrality, neither appear to exist. You're balanced based on your imbalance. You're only as clear as you can come from clarity. Again, from wholeness, you see wholeness. You see the whole thing. Yeah, okay. So it's I'm sorry, it's so well orchestrated. It really is. Nothing is actually bad. We're not in a bad situation. We make it so complicated. It's just that what does get highlighted makes it appear to be bad, because that's what they focus on. And if they can get you to focus on it, you're reinforcing it. Where attention goes, energy flows. And so if you follow their lead and you stay mesmerized and attracted and attached to their storyline, they win. They get to loosh off your energy, whatever you want to call it. But when you find yourself like in this victimhood mindset, like this is something I had to sit with for myself. Like I could find all the things wrong with something when I was in a shitty mood. And when I was in a good mood, it was like walking or tiptoeing through the daisies or the flowers, like life. I was on a cloud. Everything was hunky-dory. It was dandy. It was magical. It was miraculous. It was playful, fun. Most people don't realize that when you find yourself in a shitty situation, just need to look in the opposite direction or get outside of yourself. If you are in your awareness of it, you know I'm in a shitty situation right now. I'm having a shitty mood. My human ain't happy. Step back into the observer, the witnessing department. Observe it and ask yourself, okay, what the hell is this about? What are you attached to? What story are you attaching to and playing out in your mind? Because that's where it all originates. Get out of your shithead mind, taking on a shitty story and the woes of the world that keep you in the victim mindset, and recognize that the law of polarity, the law of duality, the law of physics, an equal reaction, energy has an opposing and attracting force. Like attracts like, but opposites attract. We magnetize where we're at. So you may be like, oh, I'm in a shitty mood. You know what? If I'm in a shitty mood, what would take me out of the shitty mood? Unless you really want to sit there. And this is why I say mirror therapy is the best. Go look in the mirror and look at yourself. See if you can actually be serious, or you'll crack yourself up, is usually what happens to me. You look in the mirror, you'll look at yourself and you go, okay, you're in a shitty mood. You're aware of that. Suck it up, baby. At least if you're going to be in a shitty mood, choose to be in a shitty mood and stop acting like you're the victim of your own illusory stories because you're delusional in something. You're so fixated and attached to whatever it is that you're the one causing this resistance, because that's all that it is. It's a resistance to what is and an attachment to what you want it to be. So when you're in a shitty mood, you can shift that mood, but you have to choose to shift that mood. First, you got to call yourself out on your own bullshit, your belief systems. The fact that you recognize, hey, I'm in a shitty mood. Clearly, I want things to be different. Now go look in the mirror and say, okay, how are you going to change this? Or would you like to sit in it for a little while? At least if you're going to sit in it for a while, suck it up and feel it fully. You know why? Because you're going to appreciate once you get out of it. Because the deeper you dive, the higher you rise. You may fall down to the depths of despair, but at least you're aware there's a way out of there. And that just in the awareness of being in it has already shifted you to rise up out of it. This is the beauty of choice. Choices make changes, and changes bring more choices. And choice is our superpower. We don't have to stay stuck. It's a choice. It's up to us just to choose to get out of our own shit. So I wrote something down earlier and I was like, blessings are curses, but curses are blessings. It's just your life experience, perspectives, and stories that molded and influenced your belief system around them when you encounter them. So one person might consider something a blessing and you may see it as a curse, and vice versa. But they're two sides of the coin. They are married together. Because a lot of times people get a blessing and it turns into a curse, and a lot of times you get a curse, it turns into a blessing. That's life. That's life. That your blessings become your curse and your curse becomes your blessing. That your pain becomes your purpose. Your mess becomes your message. The tests of your life become the testimony that you can teach from and support others when they're going through something similar. That you speak from personal experience. You're not just talking off the cuff of what somebody just told you or something you've heard so many times. You adopted it to be your own. See, beliefs are simply stories we've heard over and over again, and now we think they're ours. It's our dogma. And dogma basically is the root of your karma. And so I like to remind myself, when I'm so stuck in my shit, all I have to do is remember that it takes nourishment and nurturing, and that the situation is fertilizing me with my new wisdom. Because even the lotus has to grow out of the mud. You need what appears to be the shit to make you appreciate the blooming, the coming out of it. And I'm not saying it has to be so painful or extreme. You just have to acknowledge it. Because that's all life is. Acknowledging, being so fully present in the gift of the now that you're not just checked out, playing escapism, or escape artists who don't want to be present in their bodies. Again, the pain avoidance, I'll go back to that one again, because that's where this all starts. It all starts with the pain avoidance. In my last video where I'm talking about, people are seeking ways to numb the pain, but don't realize that the same sensors, the same receptors also supply the pleasure. That you can't get rid of one without inhibiting the other, that they are one and the same. That is actually the life nerve, which in Kundalini Yoga we call the vagus nerve. And so when you hear about people with trauma, the amygdala, the vagus nerve, the enteric nervous system that goes all throughout your body that doesn't get talked about. It's, the vagus nerve is also known as the wandering nerve. And it is associated with the 10th cranial nerve at the base of the skull. Like when you trigger that with certain breath exercises, you build resilience, and that allows you to bounce back quicker from the sympathetic stress nervous system, right? So the sympathetic nervous system is when you kick into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn when you're triggered. But when you have a stronger nervous system and you work your breath, you allow yourself to come into the present, you become mindful. That allows you to soften back into the rest or digest, the parasympathetic nervous system, that's where the repair occurs. And then that's also where we're mostly supposed to operate from. Not this chronic stress that everybody is in survival mode and then wondering why they have dis-ease and they're aging, or they're dissatisfied with life. So much work we can always do on ourselves. So again, it goes back to the pain avoidance, and it's subtle on all levels, but when you begin to recognize it, you start to see how it bleeds over and how it's all connected. We're talking, it's connected on all levels, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And right now, despite the craziness that appears on the outside, the key is getting healthy on the inside. Because once you get right with yourself, you begin to recognize it and you start to see how it bleeds over and that it's all connected in this crazy world. That what you see in everyone else is because you have been there and that's where you were at. It's not that you need to be there. You don't need to jump in they say, if people are in a sinking ship, the way to save them is not to jump in the ship with them, basically. You have to maintain your resilience, stay in that parasympathetic, calm nervous system. Because the moment you jump ship into the sinking ship, you're no good for anybody, let alone yourself. Oh, another good one. There's more to come. Just thoughts to ponder and to reflect upon. Oh yeah, and there's one other thing I was reflecting upon, as much as we've talked about the sovereignty and the language spells and how they trick us into going along with their little game. When you called out and put them on notice, like, I'm a human being. I don't have to prove myself to you. I'm standing right here. You do not need documentation for a person who is in front of your face. And if you're saying the state or whoever the entity is needs proof, well then show me their proof. Show me those people, not the paper, because the paper is a fictional character. I'm a living human breathing being. So unless I have another human breathing being in front of me, this is a mute conversation. Like, years ago, because I was in the military, because I was subjected to that bullshit of, we need to do a drug test. And because, it's just like when you voluntarily give information about yourself, they use it against you, right? Same thing with the body. And I remember I was very much that naive child that was like, I have nothing to hide. Why would I worry about you knowing things about me? Why would I worry about, I have nothing to hide. So, I tried marijuana a few times. Okay, maybe more than a few times, but whatever. At the same time, it's like, I'm not a threat to anybody. So, of course, I'm going to admit I did it. I don't have to go into the details of it. You asked? Yeah, okay, how much? I don't know, a few times here or there, during the summer or whatever, or whatever it was. Now, because of that, because I voluntarily gave up some of that information when I went in the Air Force, for my first year in, at 18 years old, I was randomly drug tested because they do that kind of shit. Like, you give them, like, it's funny. Think about this. This is a psychology in itself. The people who lie, who say, oh, no, I've never done drugs. No random drug tests. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like, oh, well, we don't have to worry about them. It reinforces the liar in those people if they're lying. Whereas if you're the goody two-shoes, these are the extremes, by the way, of obviously. But if you're the goody two-shoes and you're always telling the truth, then we want to reinforce the goody two-shoes. And actually, it's a reverse psychology, because now you've already told us you've done it because you volunteered it. We're going to reinforce it by drug testing you so that it reinforces the fear of authority in you. We know we got you. The other ones, we'll weed them out as we go. But you, we want to reinforce that good behavior, going along to get along. And so, of course, for the first year, I was drug tested. And I'm like, this is so weird, you know. And I had what they call an interim secret clearance in the beginning, because I needed to get a TSSCI, which is compartmentalized, and it's up there. So, I mean, honestly, I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah, I wasn't worried about it because I knew I didn't have anything to hide. But it was also not until much later that I was thinking, this is silly. You know, my conversations with people were like, whatever, you know, it's not a big deal. But it's strange. Like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, that's strange. Why would they take so long? I don't even have a history of anything. So when they go and they do background checks and they ask people about you, and I mean, I had a colleague, and he had a bad relationship with some in-laws of his family because he was married to a woman, and they said some really nasty shit about him, and it really fucked him up. And I remember him telling us about it. He's like, yeah, they're making problems for me, these people. Because, you know, the unfortunate thing is you've got people doing background checks, and they don't necessarily background check the people they're using as references. Like, they typically will interview people who are not on your list of referrals or suggested, or, you know, somebody who'll give you a good review kind of thing, kind of like what you do on a job application, you know, but you put down references. Typically, they go to the people outside of that scope. So he was having trouble. I mean, my clearance obviously came through. I had a clearance for over 20 years. But it's just a really fucked up thing, the way the system has convinced people that they need to give up their own bodily fluids, voluntarily, mind you, although they feel like they have to and they're obliged. They don't have to. We do not have to comply to that. That's actually incriminating. That's also, that's under duress, once again. It's an example of being under duress. And number two, it is getting you to comply and show your fear of authority. I mean, these are all the little subtle things of the psychology behind it. It's also knowing that you're under the spell of thinking you need to prove yourself worthy in order to maintain a job that they need you to do, that they know you're going to do. It's really fucked up. I mean, nobody ever questions the fact that if something were to happen, here you are giving voluntarily evidence to incriminate yourself. It's like the Miranda rights. It's like, don't speak because you could incriminate yourself in the moment of all the situation. It's like, you need to be very careful and attentive because they already have the upper hand, knowing the rules of the game, and you do not. So you thinking naively that I got nothing to hide turns into this whole domino effect of your blood, your urine, your spit, saliva, whatever, is showing something we can use against you. But then it also goes back to what you were saying regarding the oldest technologies of really, this is black magic, witchcraft, pharmakia. The sorcerers use the fluids for other reasons too. So once again, it's going back to, we'll stick the cow pus in you, or we'll take it from you. Either way, it's a way to, like the puppet with the strings, to get into you, get under your skin, literally, to inhabit you, like spirits possess you. If I can't get under your skin, it's really classic narcissist. If I can't fuck you physically, I will fuck you through your head mentally. Like, I'll be straight up. My ex-partner, he had erectile dysfunction issues with me, at least. And I really believe it was that his dick knew it didn't belong in me, and that the real fuck with your head situation was with him. He was pissed. He couldn't physically fuck me. That fucked with his head. So when it fucked with his head, he proceeded to flip that and try to fuck with my head. And that's the game of the narcissist. They can't get under your skin. Same scenario. They will take it out from underneath, right? Those two, it's either to go into you or take it out of you. That's all they know, is to go in you or take you out of you. That is what the whole, it's either to program you or to take the soul from you. So like the incrimination with bodily fluids and everything else has a bigger picture, and people just won't see it. Oh, see, this is where we dive deep into, here we are at in the rabbit hole again. It's a technology that's been around for a very long time, and it's not science. It's just witchcraft. It's spell casting. It's boil in trouble. Like, we're going to cast a spell upon you. All I gotta do is have some of your fluids, your DNA, a connection to you. Just like when you touch paper, not even sign it, you're already in a contract. You didn't even have to sign it. That's how the scenario goes. That's why when they try to serve papers on you, you don't want to put your hands on them, because that's accepting it even before you've read it, that you're entering into a contract. That is contract law, right? I know this goes so much deeper than all of this, but just the idea that they can take your blood and they can actually, just like voodoo dolls, it's no different. What do they do with voodoo dolls? They create the doll. They put some of your hair. Remember, they've got to collect something of you. The relics, just like I was talking about regarding, the rituals of religion. The rites, the rituals, the relics. They need to have parts of the individual for the spell to be cast. So we really don't know, when you look at religion, the relics and how they utilize those. It's like you've got the masses at mass, while they hold the relic up and get everybody to focus and put their attention and energy on it. We really don't know how they're wielding that energy. We think it's for a miracle. We think it's for, humanity and this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, they're channeling that into something completely different. Every group gathering you must look at from the perspective of what is the ultimate gain, function, purpose of it. Intention is everything. And wherever you place yourself, you are a part of that. You're enabling it and participating in it. I mean, we're going to go down that rabbit hole. Start paying attention more often. Like, the whole purpose of meditation is to know what's running your show. We don't even know what's really running the whole show here. We really don't know the real, true identity behind the hidden hand. We only see the players that are the layers in front of, masking the whole scenario. Wow. Yeah, so, anytime you're giving blood, just think about the fact that could be used in a voodoo doll situation. You just don't know. They might be collecting you like a relic because you got some good juju. They're going to channel your energy. They're going to attack you, and they're going to use you, abuse you. Isn't that what they do with voodoo dolls? Most of the times, that black magic is not to serve and help you. So this is where humanity needs to wake the fuck up.